Okay, let's dive into something fascinating today. We're tackling a name that's been showing up everywhere, really, across Africa and far beyond. Ibrahim Traoré.
Absolutely. And we've pulled together quite a mix for this deep dive. We've got excerpts from a biography, Ibrahim Traoré, courage, leadership, revolution, standard stuff like Wikipedia, BBC, The Economist too.
Right.
We glanced at sentiments on places like X. But obviously you have to be careful with that kind of thing. Treat it with caution unless it's backed up elsewhere.
Of course. So our mission today, basically to try and cut through the noise, understand who this young leader really is. We want to trace his path, from this small village in Burkina Faso right up to the presidential palace.
Yeah.
Look at his successes, sure, but also the monumental challenges he faces. And just try to get a grip on why he's such a lightning rod for discussion everywhere.
It's a compelling story, definitely. And it's set against this really, really complex backdrop. You've got a nation grappling with insurgency, trying to find its place.
In a shifting world order, yeah.
Exactly. And he's a figure full of, contradictions, depending on which source you're looking at.
Okay, let's jump right in then, see what the sources tell us about this 37-year-old. He's often compared to a revolutionary icon, which is interesting in itself.
It is. So the sources, they start us right at the beginning. Born March 14th, 1988, place called Kéra, in Bondoku.
Okay.
It's a small village, Muhon province, an area that's, faced its share of economic challenges.
Right, so a modest background.
Yeah, that's how they paint it.
Yeah.
Simple, resilient, did his primary school right there in Bondoki, then moved to Bobo-Dioulasso, a bigger city, for high school.
And what was he like back then? Any descriptions?
The sources mention teachers and peers calling him quiet, but also very talented, academically focused, it seems.
Diligent,
yeah. And then he went on to university in Ouagadougou, the capital. That was 2006. Studied geology.
Geology, huh? That feels unexpected, doesn't it? For someone who ends up leading a country through coups?
It does suggest maybe an initial path that wasn't military or political, but that changed pretty significantly. At 21, the sources say, driven by a sense of duty, he joined the army.
Okay, so duty calls. He gets military training, anti-aircraft specifically, in Morocco.
That's right, anti-aircraft training in Morocco. Then transferred to infantry stationed in Kaya.
And Kaya is important, right? Because that town was already dealing with the Jihadist insurgency back then.
Exactly. So right from the get-go in his military career, he's on the front lines. He's seeing it firsthand.
And he moves up the ranks.
Yep. Promoted to lieutenant in 2014, did a stint with the UN peacekeeping force, MINUSMA, over in Mali.
Okay.
And the sources point out he was recognized for bravery there. This was 2018, during some pretty intense rebel attacks near Tombouctou.
Right. And back in Burkina Faso itself.
Deeply involved in counterinsurgency. Places like Otapuanu in 2019, battles near Jibebo. He was right in the thick of it.
And this is where things start to shift for him, isn't it? Seeing the reality for the soldiers.
Precisely. According to the material we reviewed, this is where he saw the harsh conditions.
Like what? What did the sources mention?
Things like a serious lack of equipment, not enough support for the troops, and systemic corruption, pervasive stuff.
Wow. Seeing that up close must have been.
Yeah, this firsthand experience.
Yeah.
Seeing soldiers risking everything, while, as he perceived it, politicians were, taking bribes. It led to this really profound disillusionment.
So it wasn't just fighting the enemy outside, but feeling like there was decay inside the system.
Exactly that. And that frustration, it seems, it just fueled this resolve in him, not just against the insurgents, but against the systemic injustices he felt he was seeing.
Right.
It really appears to have shaped his vision for what Burkina Faso needed. He made captain in 2020.
Okay, so you have this battlefield experience combined with this deep frustration. It sounds like the perfect storm for, what came next?
Pretty much. The sources say he was a key supporter in that first coup, January 2022, the one that brought the junta, the patriotic movement for safeguard and restoration, to power.
Right. And after that coup, he gets a command.
Yeah, head of an artillery regiment. Back in Kaya, actually.
But things didn't stabilize, did they?
No, dissatisfaction grew pretty quickly with the leader of that junta, Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba. The main issue, the sources consistently say, was his failure to really get a handle on the insurgency.
So Traoré felt Damiba wasn't focused enough on security.
He and other officers apparently tried to push Damiba, tried to redirect his focus.
But it didn't work, leading to another coup.
Correct. September 30, 2022. This second military takeover, led by Traoré and his allies, ousted Damiba.
And just like that, Traoré steps up.
Assumes the role of interim president, October 6, 2022, just days later.
And he was only 34, which made him, I think, the second youngest head of state in the world at that point.
That's what the sources indicate, yeah. And he apparently had significant backing, especially from the Cobra Special Forces unit. Though, the exact nature of his direct command or association there is debated a bit in the material.
Still, it's an incredibly rapid rise.
Yeah.
From captain experiencing the system's failures to bang, leading the nation.
It's remarkable. And since taking power, he's been very, very deliberate about crafting this image, a transformative leader.
Inspired by Thomas Sankara, right? That name comes up a lot.
A lot. Sankara, the former leader, Africa's Che Guevara. Traoré openly draws inspiration from his revolutionary Pan-Africanist ideas.
And you see that reflected in his policies.
Oh, absolutely. Especially foreign policy. Very strong anti-imperialist position.
Like distancing from France.
Exactly. Expelling French troops was a huge move. And then the economic actions banning uranium and gold exports to France and the U.S.
Wow. That sends a clear message.
It's textbook Pan-Africanist ideology in action, emphasizing sovereignty, self-reliance, pushing back against historical foreign influence. Very direct.
He's also looked beyond Burkina Faso's borders, though. This alliance of Sahel states.
Right, with Mali and Niger, he was pivotal in forming that. It's framed as regional security cooperation, but let's be honest, it's also about reducing Western influence in the Sahel. That's a clear goal.
Okay, let's shift to the economy for a second. You mentioned gold earlier. What about this refinery?
Yes. November 2023, they approved construction for the country's first national gold refinery.
The idea being?
Keep more value in the country. Burkina Faso has significant gold resources, but like many places, historically, it's exported raw. This aims to process it domestically, capture more of that value chain.
And has there been any, impact noted economically?
Well, it's interesting. The IMF and World Bank, their reports noted robust economic growth for 2025. They cited agriculture and services expanding.
Robust growth. That's significant.
And they also reported a slight reduction in extreme poverty, dropped from about 26.8% down to 24.9%.
Okay, so some tangible positive indicators acknowledged by major institutions. What about social spending?
Sources also point to increased spending there, education, health, social protection, and they got some praise for improving domestic revenue collection and managing public spending.
So success is on one hand, but the challenges haven't gone away, have they?
Not at all. They're immense. The biggest, undoubtedly, is that ongoing jihadist insurgency, especially up north. It's relentless, a constant test of his leadership, a threat to the whole country's stability.
And internal threats, too. I remember reading about an attempted coup against him.
Yes, September 26, 2023. There was a reported attempt at a military overthrow. It really highlights, the fragility that might still exist under the surface, despite efforts to project control.
Politically, it hasn't been smooth sailing either, has it? This extension of his mandate.
Right. May 2024, after these national consultations, which importantly most political parties boycotted, they announced the transitional mandate was extended. 5 more years. Until 2029.
And the criticism.
Critics, as noted in the sources, see that as a clear move to consolidate power, to entrench himself.
Which ties into concerns about, media freedom and propaganda.
Exactly. The sources talk about tight control over communication, an increase in pro-government propaganda. Critics argue this stifles expression, and they accuse him of personalizing power. Again, important to state, these are perspectives reported in the sources.
Understood. Impartial reporting here. So, digging into his ideology, what drives him? You mentioned Pan-Africanism, Marxism.
Deeply rooted in both, it seems.
No.
Very much inspired by Sankara's vision, a self-reliant, united Africa, free from what he frames as neo-colonialism.
So the goal is liberation from Western influence.
That's the stated aim, yes. Liberate Burkina Faso, maybe inspire wider change in Africa, position himself as a symbol of that renewed African sovereignty.
And economic independence is key to that. The refinery, reducing reliance.
Absolutely. Harnessing national resources, cutting dependency on foreign powers. That's central. And regional unity, too. The alliance of Sahel states fits right into that vision.
And the social equity piece. Education, health, poverty reduction. That links back to his army days.
It seems directly connected, addressing those systemic problems he witnessed firsthand as a soldier, aiming for a fairer society.
Okay, let's fast forward to now, May 2025. What's his status?
Still interim president, mandate extended to 2029, as we said.
Right.
And there was another significant move late last year, December 6, 2024. He dissolved his government, removed the prime minister, Apollinaire Joachim Kielem de Tambela.
Which was interpreted how?
Again, sources largely saw it as further consolidation of his personal control, tightening his grip.
So at 37, he's polarizing, clearly.
Yeah.
Charismatic, some say, but also enigmatic.
Yes, quite formal, often keeps his cards close to his chest in public. His leadership is laser-focused, security first, then economic self-reliance, regional alliances, but he's constantly juggling those huge challenges, the insurgency, political opposition.
Looking ahead, what do the sources suggest his plans might be? Based on actions, statements?
Well, security has to be number one. Intensifying the fight against insurgents seems inevitable. Probably looking for more support from regional allies, maybe non-Western partners too, like Russia. That connection is often mentioned.
Makes sense.
And economically.
Stay the course, likely. Push forward with that self-sufficient model, the gold refinery, boosting domestic revenue streams.
And politically, now that he can run in future elections.
Yeah, that eligibility, approved last May, definitely signals a potential long-term leadership ambition, which naturally brings up questions about the future path for democracy there.
And on the bigger stage, Pan-African leadership.
Seems like a clear aspiration. Expanding his influence, promoting that anti-imperialist narrative, pushing for more regional cooperation blocs like the Sahel Alliance.
Okay, let's step back a bit. Forget the events for a moment. What kind of person do the sources paint Ibrahim Traoré as?
Descriptions are pretty consistent. Charismatic, definitely media savvy. He knows how to present himself. Disciplined, too.
Reserved but confident. Yeah, that comes across. And crucially, for his supporters, he's seen as a man of the people, someone who really embodies the hopes of Burkina Faso's incredibly young population. Median age is, what, under 18?
Wow, yeah, 17.7, I think. That youth connection is powerful.
Hugely powerful. His speaking style, even his, image, it contrasts sharply with older leaders. For many, he represents hope, change.
But then the flip side.
The flip side, as we've noted, critics point to that enigmatic formal style and accuse him of leaning towards authoritarianism, citing media control, cracking down on dissent, again, presenting both sides as reported.
So influenced by Marxism, Pan-Africanism, a revolutionary at heart, tempered by military pragmatism.
That seems like a fair summary based on the sources, driven by this idea of justice, shaped by what he saw, but also understanding the realities of leading in a crisis. It's a complex mix.
Okay, so pulling it all together.
Yeah.
Why is he so widely discussed right now? What makes him grab headlines internationally?
I think it's a convergence of factors. First, just his age. He represents this new generation on a very young continent. That alone is noteworthy.
And the anti-imperialist stance is huge, isn't it?
Absolutely massive. Taking bold actions against former colonial powers, especially France. That makes him a hero figure for many across Africa and beyond who are frustrated with, neo-colonial dynamics.
The Sankara comparison definitely fuels that too.
Incredibly powerful. It immediately frames him in this lineage of revolutionary figures fighting for sovereignty. It amplifies his appeal tenfold.
Plus, he's got charisma. He knows how to use the media.
Definitely. He can craft a compelling narrative, connect through his speeches. That matters.
And he's leading through a genuine crisis. The security situation is dire.
Right. So his actions on that front, plus those reports of actual economic progress, however nascent, keep him constantly in the spotlight. It's high-stakes leadership.
And finally, the controversy itself generates buzz, right? The power consolidation, the questions about democracy, it sparks intense debate. Support versus criticism.
Exactly. It makes him a figure you can't really ignore. Now, thinking about his journey, the principles, is there anything someone listening, not planning a coup, can maybe take away or learn from his path based on this material? Not copying actions, but maybe core ideas.
That's an interesting angle. It's definitely not a straightforward how-to guide.
No.
But maybe. Like the value of having diverse experiences. His geology background, then the intense military training. It gave him a unique perspective, maybe, on resources and security. Suggests maybe unconventional paths build different kinds of readiness.
That's a good point. And maybe the idea of channeling frustration. He didn't just observe corruption and lack of support. It seems to have directly fueled his drive to change things, letting injustice motivate action.
Yeah, translating anger into resolve. And courage, obviously. facing insurgents in Mali and Burkina Faso. That speaks to developing resilience, facing difficulties head-on. That applies anywhere.
And commitment to service. His whole military career, dedicating himself to protecting the nation, even when things were bad. Finding ways to contribute.
Having a clear vision is also key, isn't it? His Pan-Africanism, anti-imperialism, it's a strong guiding force, identifying problems and working toward solutions, even if it means challenging the status quo.
True. And his communication skills, that charisma we mentioned. Being able to articulate that vision, rally support. That's a learnable skill, to some extent. Inspiring others.
The Alliance of Sahel States also points to collaboration.
Right.
Building networks with those facing similar challenges. Collective action.
Yeah. And finally, maybe resilience against criticism. He certainly faced opposition, attempted coups. Now, how he responds to criticism is debated, but the principle of staying committed to your goals despite setbacks is there. Though ideally, you also need to be open to feedback.
Big caveat there. But yeah, these are principles, but applying them, there are massive challenges and differences, obviously.
Huge ones, starting with the risk. His path involved incredible danger. Challenging powerful systems like that has real personal costs.
Definitely not for the faint of heart. And the whole power versus democracy dilemma.
That's the crux of the criticism against him, isn't it? Balancing the need for decisive action in a crisis with democratic principles. His extended mandate raises those questions starkly. How do you use power without becoming authoritarian? It requires real transparency, real inclusivity.
And his success or appeal is so tied to Burkina Faso's specific situation, isn't it? The insurgency, the history with France. You can't just copy-paste that. The principles need adapting. Focus on education or economy or whatever the local issues are.
Exactly. It's context-specific. A story full of lessons, maybe, but also warnings.
Wow. Okay, that really was a deep dive. A figure who's undeniably trying to shake things up. Not just in Burkina Faso, but maybe regionally too, from quiet geology student to this. Military leader, coup leader, president navigating insurgency, it's complex.
It really is. We've seen the drivers of frustration with corruption, the push for self-reliance, the Pan-African ideals, and tangible steps like the refinery, social investment.
Right.
But then, stacked right alongside that are these enormous challenges. The insurgency isn't going away. There's internal opposition. And these really serious questions about his consolidation of power, media control.
He does seem to capture this youthful energy, this defiance that resonates, especially with younger generations across the continent. But at the same time, using tactics that, raise alarms for observers about democratic norms. It's a potent mix.
It really highlights those incredibly difficult trade-offs leaders might feel they face in very unstable situations. How do you secure the state, protect people, and build a more just, prosperous society? It's a tightrope walk.
So, building on that, maybe the final thought for everyone listening. Given these intense security threats, these deep systemic issues that Traoré points to in Burkina Faso, how can a leader realistically balance that urgent need for stability, for security right now with the longer-term crucial goals of democratic development, individual freedoms? Is there a point where one just has to take precedence, especially in a crisis? Or is that a false dichotomy?
That might be the fundamental question his story forces us to grapple with. And there are no easy answers there, are there?
Not at all. Well, thanks for going on this deep dive with us. We will definitely be back soon with another stack of sources to get into.